Imagine you are 26 years old. The reigning world champions are bearing down on you. Their captain, the greatest scorer in World Cup history, is standing 11 meters away. And your country, 120 million people, has never been here before. Egypt had never won a World Cup match before this tournament. They had never reached a knockout round. They were not supposed to be here. But Mostafa Shober had been preparing for this exact moment his entire life. Not because of anything he had done, because of what his father had done 36 years before he was born. Egypt is a country of 120 million people. It is one of the oldest civilizations on Earth. It has given the world the pyramids and the Sphinx and 3,000 years of recorded history. And yet for most of its footballing history, Egypt had been invisible on the world stage. Until 1990, until a goalkeeper named Ahmed Shober walked onto the pitch in Italy and made the world notice. Egypt's 1990 team was not expected to win, but Shober kept a clean sheet against Ireland, the only Egyptian goalkeeper ever to do so at a World Cup. He stopped everything, and then, when the final whistle blew, Egypt went home. Ahmed Shober had 107 caps for Egypt. He became a legend. He became a television commentator, and he had a son. Mostafa Shober grew up with a father who had stood in a World Cup goal. He grew up at Al Ahly, Egypt's most decorated club, where his father had played his entire career. He grew up knowing exactly what it felt like to be in his father's shadow. Before this tournament, Mostafa had played just 8 matches for the Egyptian national team. 8. His father had played 107. The comparison followed him everywhere. But the father had one piece of advice. Always the same word, before every club match, before every World Cup game, just one word: enjoy. Egypt came into the 2026 World Cup having won just 2 of their previous 7 matches at the tournament in their entire history. 2. In 80 years of trying. And then in the group stage against Iran, Mostafa Shober saved a penalty from striker Mehdi Termi. Egypt drew. They did not lose. They moved forward. They beat Australia on penalties in the round of 32, Egypt's first ever knockout stage victory. 120 million people watching. A nation that had waited for this their entire lives. And standing at the center of every one of those moments, the player who would not let them fall was the goalkeeper with 8 caps and his father's name. On the 7th of July, 2026, Egypt faced the defending world champions. Argentina had won every World Cup match they had ever played against an African nation. 8 matches, 8 wins, no exceptions. The 15th minute, Yasser Ibrahim climbs above the Argentina defense and heads it into the far corner. 1-0, Egypt lead the reigning world champions. And then Argentina win a penalty. And up steps the man with 20 goals in World Cup history, the most ever scored, Lionel Messi. Shober dives left. He reads it. He stops it. It was his second penalty save of the tournament. He had already stopped Iran's Termi in the group stage. But Shober was not done. McAllister headed away. Alvarez point-blank pushed around the post. Egypt went into halftime winning. The 67th minute. Haitham Hassan drives at the Argentina defense. He finds Mostafa Zico, and Zico makes it 2. Argentina had never in their entire World Cup history come back from 2 goals down, not once, in 13 attempts, never. 11 minutes left, 2 goals ahead. Egypt had never been closer. 79th minute, Christian Romero heads in from Messi's cross, 2-1. 83rd minute, Messi off the crossbar and in off the goalkeeper's hands, 2-2. The hands that had saved Messi had just given him back his goal. 92 minutes, Enzo Fernandez, a header into the far corner, 3-2, Argentina. Egypt's greatest comeback was 3 goals in 14 minutes by the team they were beating. The team that, by every historical measure, was not supposed to be able to do this. Egypt made it further than they had ever gone. They beat Belgium. They drew with New Zealand and Iran. They won on penalties against Australia. They held Argentina 2-0 with 11 minutes left. A country of 120 million people had spent decades watching Africa's biggest clubs, Africa's biggest names, try and fail to reach a World Cup quarterfinal. Egypt was not supposed to be the one, but they were the one. For 36 years, Ahmed Shober was the only Egyptian goalkeeper the world had ever noticed. His son stepped onto the same stage, and in 4 matches made himself impossible to ignore. Before the tournament, Ahmed had one message for his son. Just one word: enjoy. And somewhere in that word, in the gap between what his father achieved and what Mostafa was attempting, was an entire generation of Egyptian football. He saved 2 penalties. He kept out Messi. He kept out Mac Allister. He kept out Alvarez. He held the reigning world champions to 0 for 83 minutes, and it still was not enough. That is the cruelest thing about this story. Not that Egypt lost, but that they were good enough to deserve to win, and the history books will only record the score. Africa has produced 4 nations that reached a World Cup quarterfinal in history. Cameroon, Senegal, Ghana, Morocco. Egypt was 11 minutes from joining them.